Consider this pathetic situation. You will observe that heads of a state in their private jet, fuel guzzling aeroplanes, they go on to congregate in one place to talk about, to say that you shouldn't go on to produce carbon. They have come all the way producing so much amount of a carbon only to say, don't produce carbon. Is it not pathetic? Is it not incomprehensible to understand that part? Now you'll again go on to find that some of those countries which have been the biggest polluters, the world would have been a much more nicer place had the Western European countries not gone ahead with an unsustainable practice of industrial revolution. They say that don't produce carbon, don't go on to burn coal, while they themselves go on to keep on doing it so. You'll also going to find it as super interesting and also so contradictory, so incomprehensible, so ununderstanding that all of those people who go on to talk of not producing carbon, who are talking about solutions, they are themselves creating problems of every type possible. The fact is, if that is a problem, the solution is so simple. But you will not come across anyone talking about solutions that are simple. Everyone will go to talk about that if there is so much amount of carbon being produced, do this, do this, do this. And everything that you do, where exactly that you land? You land up getting them money, letting them earn money, of course, earning money in that process yourself as well. So, is it about solution to climatic change? Answer is no. Is it about a solution to global warming? Answer is no. It is something else. It's anything but solution to global warming. Incidentally, all the solutions, if you can go to think of about global warming, is very, very simple. You don't have to do anything at all. The best solution in this case is allow rains to take place, natural rains. You know, if natural rains take place and if these rains are going to be taking place, what can happen? What can happen is that is H2O, that is the rainfall, combines with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and that produces H2CO3, and that is where it is going to be in the soil. That is where it is. You don't have to do anything for 2 years of a time. Just go on to have patience. Just go on to be with nature, and you have seen it as well. You have seen it during lockdown phases that the atmosphere kept on becoming clean and cleaner. You also saw that good number of birds and animals returned back. You also saw, and some people in northern part of the country also saw and observed and rejoiced the reclamation of Yamuna, which was nothing but a black tar. It was a river of black tar. It was with a very clear water as well. So the solution is simple, but you'll be surprised to know that no one will ever want to take a simple solution. No one is willing to take a simple solution at all. The solutions are indeed much more simple, and once you understand it, you will come to know that how is it that it can be solved even better. Now understand that part. We are living in an energy-intensive society. For everything, we require to have energy. For everything, we require to generate energy. For everything, we require to produce energy. To solve any problem, we have to create energy, and it's all centered around what we call as GDP. So, you produce certain type of industrial goods using energy. People earn money. People who are going to supply you energy, they earn money. People who are going to use it, they earn money. People who are going to produce it, they earn money. People who are going to consume it, they earn money. But in the process, you pollute the environment. In the process, you also allow people to fall ill. You also go on to create a lot of nefarious systems into the nature, which is harmful and detrimental to the human beings. So, you again go on to establish a separate department for the purpose of managing pollution. So, all the people who will go on to be getting employed in trying to manage pollution, they will earn money. The GDP will increase. Now, pollution will go on to cause a lot of people to fall ill. So, you require to have a health system in place. Now, all those people who are going to be aiding you and assisting you in building concrete buildings, which are themselves going to be fuel guzzlers and also polluters, that will also going to increase GDP. Then you will going to find that all of these people who are going to have this management done, they will also go on to earn some money in this process. So, every step, you tend to earn money, and in the process, you're going to pollute the environment. Accept it. It's not about making a living. It's about leading a life. And people who are part of this gross domestic product, people who are part of this earning system, they don't make a living. They don't lead a life. They only make a living of sorts. And that is a perpetual, unsustainable system that you're going to observe in this case. So all the carbon dioxide that the so-called civilization has spewed into the atmosphere and that has found its way into the atmosphere, that requires to be withdrawn essentially for the purpose of tackling global warming. And there are 4 ways in which it can be done. One of them is going to be carbon storage. Store that carbon. And how is it that you can go to store that carbon? You can store that carbon in a variety of ways. The second is through seaweeds, grow seaweeds. Third is kelp farming. Of course, go on to farm kelp and then allow basalt to be weathered. So, if that solution is not enough, then there are simple solutions here as well. You don't have to organize a Copenhagen summit. You don't have to organize a Glasgow summit. You don't have to go for recrimination. You don't have to allow a lot of these things to be broadcasted and telecasted here and there. You don't have to do anything in this case at all. What you have to do is simplicity. And that simple solution is carbon storage, seaweed farming, kelp farming, and basalt weathering. Some of these type of solutions in which India can actually go on to become a pioneer of sorts. Now, understand that part. Carbon dioxide is going to be captured in the natural systems. And how it is? It is going to be in soils and vegetation. There is going to be a good amount of carbon dioxide there. This carbon is also going to be in peat bogs. It is going to be in forests also. When the forests going to die and the plants going to die and decompose, they do going to fix carbon dioxide. It is also going to be in wetlands, in geological reservoirs as well, river and seabed sediments as well, which contain a huge amount of it. Can you imagine? The seashells that are found in the oceans, they have so much amount of a carbon dioxide in them. If you're going to play pranks with them and they're going to get dissolved in water of the acidification of the ocean waters, God help you, what will happen? So ultimately, what you can go to do is carbon capture and sequestration can go on to occur artificially. If you can go on to do it so, you are always going to be a winner for the environment. And understand that part. This is a natural process. As you can go to take a look at it, that's a natural process. That is, you have these trees. What these trees going to do is that they undergo respiration, producing carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis withdraws it. And when the trees go on to, they die, then in the process of their death, what they also go on to do now is that these trees, in the process of their death, they're going to fix all of the carbon in soil. That's a natural process. So that is carbon sequestration by photosynthesis, and it goes on to withdraw all the carbon as it is going to be spewed So that goes on to lead to carbon neutrality. There is a second method as well. That is because by the production of biochar, and it's by the process of pyrolysis. Now, pyrolysis is a process of allowing the burning of this organic matter at 700 degrees centigrade under anaerobic conditions so that it leads to a huge reservoir of a carbon-rich layer that is called as a biochar. Now, in this process, that's the only artificial thing that have been added in this case, biochar, a pyrolysis. And in this process, what it goes on to do is that is it releases a carbon dioxide, and it is able to withdraw 25% more amount of a carbon dioxide than actually that finds itself into the atmosphere. That is one way in which one can go on to deal with this type of a situation. That is one part of it. Then the second is going to be mitigating the effects of the climatic changes, that is carbon sequestration system in natural systems. So it is going to be natural systems. It can be maintained upon, it can be improved upon, and there are many ways by which you can go on to maintain it and improve it as well. One is by what we're going to be calling is no-till. Now, no-till essentially is going to be all about taking the natural drainage conditions in the soil. So in the soil, on the field, there are always going to be some elevated regions, down regions, and all of these elevated and down regions, that means that those that are not elevated, those where water can actually go to accumulate. This allows the accumulated water to fix a good amount of a nitrogen. It allows the withdrawal of that nitrogen. That is going to be one way in which it can be done. Second is going to be cover cropping. Now that is going to be cover cropping, and you can go to have a cover cropping of sweet clovers, hairy vetch, winter rye, barley, and black medic, what not. That is variety of type of crop covers that you can go to have, which is again going to fix it. The third is going to be mulching. That is, you spread it out on the soil, a layer of mulches, and these mulches will again go on to allow a high amount of carbon to be sequestered in the soil. That is another part associated with it. And the last can be something which is associated with relay cropping. That is, you go on to grow crop. One crop is going to be of a different type, another crop is another type. Now, when the one crop is going to be in a position of being harvested, there's another crop that is just germinating in that place. So this is one way. These are some of the ways which are just to be required to be taught to the farmers and to bring it into practice. And when we say it so, we mean that no high amount of chemical fertilizers, no high amount of mechanized agriculture, no high amount of energy intensive agriculture. We are talking about getting agriculture as natural as it can be. That is the process of it. That's one. Second is, of course, move away from carbon reliant energy intensive future. This is what we are always going to be talking about. So you can go and develop variety of them: solar, wind, hydropower, bioenergy sources, and these are the ones that we are talking about. All in all, this is the one that we are talking about, this one. So you pick up solar energy, biomass energy, geothermal energy, in this case wind energy, and of course what not, that is going to be tidal energy, wave energy, hydroelectric power, all of them that are going to be part of it and a segment of it. Now, when you are going to be using all of them or part of it, this renewable energy will not going to produce so much amount of a carbon. And because it doesn't going to produce so much amount of a carbon, it is always going to be easy and economical banking on natural energy systems. Carbon capture and storage can go on to take place through what we're going to be called as the green economy. This is a green economy. And then green economy is one, of course, that is producing so little amount of carbon, and that means all that is going to be produced and that is going to be replaced as well. That means you're going to withdraw it as well. Maybe you're going to make it even not neutral, negative as well. And you will go on to find sooner that India will go on to take a lead in this case. That is one process. Third is going to be associated with all of those regions which are going to be talking about wetlands. So, if that is not going to be sufficient, then allow the area of the wetlands to increase. Now, wetlands are those regions which are called as kidney of the nature. And wetlands cover something about 6 to 9% of the Earth's surface. These wetlands have sequestered approximately 35% of the global terrestrial carbon. We are talking about that is they have sequestered 35%. That means so much amount of a carbon dioxide have been sequestered. Wetlands are very effective means and methods of carbon storage and capture because they go to accumulate organic matter in the soil. That is going to be one. Accumulating organic matter in the soil. Then that is associated with photosynthesis in an environment. When we are going to be talking about photosynthesis in an environment, that means of course, by photosynthesis, you go on to use solar energy, oxygen, for the purpose of converting it into carbon dioxide. And they control and support plant and animal life as well. When we are going to be talking about controlling and supporting plant and animal life, basically it means that there will be a lot of animals that will be dependent upon it. There will be a lot of plants that will be always also dependent on it. It will allow a high amount of vegetation to be taking place in that region, and in this vegetation that will be a solution, simple solution. Wetlands are not more than 6 feet deep, and the water table in this case happens to be almost near to the ground level. And in waterlogged state, all of these wetlands they inhibit diffusion of oxygen in that state and water filtration into sediment profile found at the bottom. So that means that is there will be a greater amount of a carbon fixation that is going to be taking place. So decomposition rates are slow, leading to a high amount of accumulation of large amounts of carbon within the wetland sediment profiles. And that is what all we want. This is going to be an ingenious practice, and you don't have to do anything at all. You just have to allow the wetlands to exist. You just have to respect the wetlands. You just have to have a sense of empathy towards the wetlands. You just have to think that the wetlands are going to be protective of you. You just have to think not in any short-term measure at all. And that is the genius of being a wetland. So you can imagine through this diagram, that is it has a bed of methane in this region. There is going to be a good amount of methane that has been fixed in this place. There's a lot of carbon storage as well. It is responsible for converting a lot of things into carbon dioxide, and here it is going to be found in the bed itself, and so on. It goes on to make a complete cycle in this region. And it is this cycle that is ultimately responsible for carbon storage. Now, wetlands also have a unique property. They have they are unique in a variety of ways. As we say, they have a unique ability in the sense they distribute carbon horizontally within adjacent wetland environments. Not only is it that they go to diffuse oxygen, that is to adjacent wetland environments as well, and that's the basic reason why they have a very high potential of fixing that carbon. Some of these wetlands they capture and store more carbon than others, and which are they? Peatland is going to be one of them. Peat, that is the first and the initial stage of the formation of coal. So peatlands cover something like some 3% of the Earth's surface, but they are responsible for storing 30% of the world's terrestrial carbon. That is one. Carbon sequestration also goes on to include certain things like seagrass, meadows, and mangrove swamps as well. And when we go to be talking about carbon sequestration, it includes all of these. That means you don't going to be using only one plant, so it is going to be a system of variety of type of plants that you can go to use in this case. So it's simple solution. Just allow the wetlands to exist. And also, wherever wetlands have been there and you have converted them into urban area, just think of it. Why is it that then you're going to talk about creating a problem? That is, there is huge amount of a carbon. You yourself are responsible, and you can yourself going to do that. And you don't have to move on aeroplanes for the purpose of suggesting it. It's a simple solution. Second is, that is of seaweeds, the role that the seaweeds can go on to play. Now, seaweeds go on to play a huge role in a variety of ways. For example, they are the ones which are responsible for absorbing carbon emissions. They regenerate the whole of this marine ecosystem as well. And when we're going to talk about regenerating marine ecosystem, then it is through this regeneration that the seaweeds are able to produce biofuels, and also, if you require it, renewable plastics. They are one of the richest sources of protein in the whole of the world. They generate marine protein, and if it is that human beings can ever going to have a problem with this type of a protein, then they can always going to rely on these seaweeds. And seaweeds have many advantages. The first is that seaweeds do not require fresh water. That means you are free. It do not require fertilizers. Why is it that they should going to require a chemical fertilizer at all? And it grows at a much more faster rate than the trees. That means when you go on to use trees, or when you go on to go for afforestation, this is an even simple solution. Then it doesn't go on to require land at all. That means the demand for land is minimal because it goes on to grow in ocean. That then seaweeds adds a small amount of imagine asparagus and a taxiformis. It's a red algae that can be used for the purpose of feeding cattle. And isn't that an ingenious method, ingenious device? And that's not all. That doesn't go to end here. It has the potential to reduce methane production from beef cattle by up till 90%. Why? Because it is going to be very protein rich. Why is it that you should go on to eat beef at all? In any case, it has been talked about in various quarters, and also in the series of this climatic change and other aspects. There is to what extent beef can be harmful to you. Seaweed is also a source of eco-friendly protein. That is what we require, because it can go to grow sea vegetable farms and 180,000 square kilometers. There is 180,000 square kilometers that can go to provide so much amount of protein to the whole of the world that the world will always be in a majestic situation as far as certain things like the control of carbon is going to be concerned. That's a second simple solution. There is a third simple solution, completely natural also. You don't have to again take a jets, you don't have to talk about a big, you don't have to use some of these people with a questionable character like that of Thunberg and so on. In this case, that is very, very simple. Kelp farming. Now, kelp farming is considered to be a panacea for all ills associated with global warming. And how is it going to be so? It is because kelp draws carbon dioxide and it goes to help de-acidify the waters. That means it's an ideal environment for the growth of the shells. And if the shells grow, they will go on to withdraw a lot of carbon dioxide. That's one. Second is the CO2 that is going to be taken out of water is similar as a land plant takes a CO2 out of the air. That means the water will go on to become clearer and better also. And that is how exactly you can go on to grow it as well. This is the way. That means you have some cages, oyster cages, and that is going to be in water in the photophotic zone where there is sunlight reaching it. You can go to have it in a mussel sock as well. You can go to have a scallop lantern net as well. It can be in a variety of ways that you can actually farm kelp. Then kelp has other advantages as well. It can go to be adding as a feedstock for agriculture industry. Kelp can go on to grow very fast, and can you imagine how fast it can be? That is, in one day, it can go on to grow up till 7 inches. One day, 7 inches. It is 30 times faster than that of land-based plant. And not to say, it can go on to draw carbon dioxide of the ocean waters in this case. That is not all. Kelp farming, if kelp farming has many other aspects as well. If 9% of the ocean is covered in seaweed farms, can you imagine what can happen? Just make a guess. It can go to produce 12 gigatons per year of biodigestible methane. A methane that is going to be biodigestible, that will not going to harm the environment at all. Kelp will also going to produce 19 gigatons of carbon dioxide. 34 gigatons of carbon dioxide could be taken from the atmosphere. If the methane is burned to generate electricity and the carbon dioxide captured and stored. So imagine it goes on to become such a system. Energy needs being fulfilled. You are farming the ocean. The land is free. That means human beings can keep on living on land as well, and they can keep on making merry, and they can keep on following these aspects as well. Follow it further. It can go to produce sufficient biomethane while removing almost 53 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So, biomethane production for the purpose of energy generation is a part of it, such a sustainable system, and additional benefits in the form of fish production, also in the form of reduction in ocean acidification, and increase in the primary productivity of the ocean, along with increasing its biodiversity. So more and more kelp farming, greater the amount of biodiversity, more and more kelp farming, the primary productivity and the energy content in the ocean water is also going to be high. More and more biodiversity, and you're going to find a good amount of reduction in the ocean acidification as well at the same time. Kelp farming was novel, but even more novel is basalt weathering. Basalt weathering is going to be all about enhanced rock weathering in the soils, and it can go to have a sufficient economic potential. Understand that part. Basalt is a rock that is going to be rich in terms of magnesium and iron, both of them. Now, when this basalt, which is going to be crushed basalt or other silicate material, is going to be added to the soil, it slowly dissolves and reacts with carbon dioxide to form carbonates. So crushed basalt, and then that means all the basalt that we're going to be having in the form of Deccan basalt in India. Imagine that is the largest body of basaltic exposure in the whole of the world. And India can be a pioneer. Like India can be a pioneer with respect to kelp farming, India can be a pioneer with respect to basalt weathering as well. So, with 7,556 or maybe any amount of it, 7.5 thousand kilometers of a coastline, India can go to revolutionize the whole of the world's solution to the global warming system by kelp farming. And if not, of course, basalt weathering is going to be part of it. So when crushed basalt or other silicate material is going to be added to the soil, it dissolves and reacts with carbon dioxide to form carbonates. And that is going to be an ingenious way of withdrawing carbon dioxide. This is because it can go on to withdraw so much amount of a carbon dioxide and with this amount of a potential. So these either remain in the soil or they're going to move towards the ocean. All of the carbon dioxide that has been fixed in the soil, that remains in the soil, or it can go on to move towards the ocean. The method will go to enable something like 0.5 to 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide with removal from the atmosphere. Now, this is the amount that can be used. This rate is similar to other land-based approaches. For example, that is organic carbon in the soil, CCS in geological formations, and of course addition of a biochar as well. That means a carbon that we talked about by natural photosynthesis and burning the organic matter to 700 degrees centigrade through the process of pyrolysis. And why not going to improve yourself? Stop eating beef. Now, people, when they're going to reduce eating beef, imagine how many things can happen. Many people eat a much more greater amount of a protein than their body goes on to require. And that is a complete waste. Not only is it that they go on to create problems for the whole of the world, but for the whole of the humanity as well. And that is also not ethical. The global demands for beef is increasing. It is increasing. And by 2050, it will go to increase to a whopping 99%. That will almost double. And that is pathetic. That means it's no civilization at all, if you can go to say it so. So, one of these ways is breeding cattle impacts the temperature conditions on the earth. And that is going to be contributing to global warming. So, in order to have beef, you require to have cattle. And for the cattle, what you have to do is you have to feed the cattle, and then you have to kill the cattle, and cattle will go on to eat a lot of plant material. It will go on to consume a lot of water. It will also go on to release a lot of methane as well. Not only that, it will also go on to release a lot of land for pasturing as well. That means you will require a lot of land for the purpose of pasture generation. The change in the diet is going to be doubly helpful because a lot of water is going to be conserved. Why is it going to be conserved? Because that will not be needed for animal production. Also, it will going to cover beef, it will going to cover buffaloes, sheep, goats, and all of these go on to emit that greenhouse gases which are going to be contributing to it. So there is absolutely no need for that as well. While when you go on to be talking about plants, all of these type of plants, such as you can go on to pick up wheat. Wheat is going to be one. Wheat, of course, you can go on to have a choice of such type of plants. Wheat, rice, maize, pulses, roots, tubers, all of them, they need no pasture land at all, like cattle. And the demand is for water for them is going to be far more less. And more importantly, of course, they are able to generate little or no greenhouse gas at all. So, shift of the diet can go on to do wonders to all it. So, what can be suggested? Do not overeat. Do not take so much amount of protein. And then go for a diet shift, reducing the consumption of animal-based foods and include more plant-based proteins like kelp, like seaweed. Seaweed is going to be the food of the future. And also, do not rejoice by taking a lot of things that your body does not require. And you will keep on making yourself fat and fat itself. While we keep on talking about all of these aspects for the purpose of controlling greenhouse gases, there are other changes that will be required. There are other ways in which we can go on to control it. One of them is building design. That is going to be following a nature-centric or eco-centric approach in building design. Commuting habits don't go on to commute towards the sprawl area. That's largely because when you go on to commute and live in that place and go on to splurge, that uses a lot of carbon dioxide. Third is, don't go on to go for weekend spending. That is because you're going to feel depressed. So keep on buying clothes and fashion products. That is not done at all. This largely because in the process, when you're going to buy too many clothes that you require, what will happen? With large number of clothes, it will be requiring to be washed as well. A large number of clothes that are going to be polyester that will go on to pollute the environment to no ends at all. And also follow a traveling ethics in this case, like plastic, say how to use it, when to use it, and in which way to use it. All of these things required to be followed. Unless these type of changes going to be taking place, the heads of state will keep on meeting quite often, traveling in their private jets and spending a huge amount of energy, spending a huge amount of money, and they will going to spend or they will also going to spew a large amount of carbon dioxide only to say that don't produce a carbon. That is indeed a pathetic situation all in all in this case. So as we're going to say, take new technologies, design with nature, live with nature, design with technology and simple technologies. This is an ingenious method to save the whole of the earth.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.